gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting episode of Scuttlebutt, the official podcast of the National Museum of the Surface Navy. I almost forgot what I was supposed to say there.
It's been
We're
a
little
while.
bit rusty.
I am a little bit rusty. It's been a while since we've been in the studio. I'm joined here today by Kyle. Do you have a current nickname?
You know?
Dr. Doolittle?
It was Dr. Doolittle, I think, the last time we checked
the
in.
new one. I don't know.
I was,
Yeah.
You have any animal
We need
stories?
a new one for season 2.
Oh, I've got.
How's the zoo?
I was going to say, you were the cat whisperer. you
Yeah,
were
we had
Dr.
the garage
Doolittle.
cat for a while. Rehomed him. Got the dog. Yeah.
Bougainvillea.
No,
that was way back.
Yeah, we've toned it down. Yeah.
That was Captain Roundup. That's like
That was
ages
a long
ago.
time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, he had something
In a
special. What
galaxy
was
far,
it?
far
It was
away.
when Jonathan was here.
I can't
Something
remember.
funny.
Oh, he called me Burt Reynolds for a little while. Back in the
Dr.
mustache
Doolittle.
days.
Dr.
Yeah.
Doolittle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Bert.
Right. And our chief operating officer, chief engineer, man about town, all around good guy, Mike Getcher, who was still going by nuts and bolts last time, I think.
I don't think, I was always Mikey G.
Mikey G?
Yeah.
Mikey
I
G
don't
works.
care.
Mikey G.
Mikey G sounds like he should be rapping.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, could be. Yeah.
I'm just thinking. The thought of you rapping is
It is pretty
Quite
anomalous.
frightening, actually.
incongruous, I think was the word I was looking for. Absolutely. Marianne, our producer, who I always say is like super skate, but that's got a Navy
cream.
connotation to it.
That sounds like a disco name or something, too, like a roller derby name.
So
know.
skating is professionally avoiding work in the Navy. That's what skaters are.
It's
in the
so
railroad,
not
it had-
avoiding work in my world.
On the railroad, it had something to do with inappropriate understanding of dogs. So we'll stop there.
Okay, and moving on. So,
Wow, and my name's David Campfield. I'm the Chief Information Officer. And
who still does not have a nickname? You're the only one that doesn't have a nickname.
I have lots of nicknames. So, all right. So we're supposed to do the episode on what it's like to work aboard a ship, but now that you
Yeah.
want a nickname, I will share.
You don't get to pick your nickname.
No. I'm just going to share a previous nickname on a formerly classified.
Morton.
Well, no, better than that. A formerly classified sea story. So
Oh.
my daughter is in Norfolk now, and she is in the temporary processing unit awaiting transport to the carrier that she got assigned to, and she ships out towards Rome in the 26th. So Godspeed to her. But she is right next to the base galley in Norfolk. And the base galley in Norfolk has history with me because when I made third class, we were in the yards. And so the frocking ceremony took place on NOB Norfolk. And I had a friend of mine in the car, and we had just had brand new third class crows put on. And we were headed down the street towards the galley, and a lot of the buildings look a lot alike. And so I was not looking at the road. I was looking at the buildings to try to find the galley until the guy in the passenger seat began hyperventilating. And I looked up to see somebody who was probably in TPU then standing in the crosswalk right down the line on the head of the hood of the truck. And so I locked up the brakes. And of course, I was obeying the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. Or some multiple of 15. And as the truck skidded into the crosswalk, the gentleman jumped back at the last second, but he contacted the radio antenna with his hand, and it did this cute little pirouette and sat down in the middle of the street. And so now I've been a third class for 25 minutes, and I have hit somebody in the crosswalk while speeding on the base in a truck that had my father's officer sticker on it so that I could park at the head of the pier that I was not authorized to have on the truck. So there were a lot of ways this was going to go wrong.
It's amazing you got out of the Navy without a dishonorable discharge. Yeah.
I don't know. I was on. I have a 214. I retired honorably. I got an ID card. But so anyway, this is a story that my daughter had heard growing up because the nickname portion of it was, I won't go into all the details, but I managed to talk the gentleman out of reporting it. And in fact, when we were trading information, he ended up throwing his information and mine back at me and said, no, I'll just go tell the corpsman that I slammed it in the locker door and fled the building. Because I had told him that he was getting out of the Navy, and I told him it would be, lucky if I got underway with the ship in July, and it was February. So he was pretty antsy to get out of the Navy and decided he didn't want to stay for an investigation, and I'd embarrassed all this stuff. So Vlock, who had been in the who was my passenger, had observed all of this very quietly, and when when the gentleman left, he just looks at me and goes, how do you live with yourself? because I'd talked him out of basically reporting me for hitting him in the crosswalk. Yeah, I wasn't back on the ship 10 minutes. 10 minutes before I was walking down the P-way, and people I didn't even know would look at me and they're like, "What's up, Scam?" And that was it. The rest of the time, it was Petty Officer Scamfield or Scam, or yeah, it was that was how I lost the Morton nickname, because it was replaced.
Yeah, that's how it usually happens.
Wow.
Well, and I guess the topic today is working on board the battleship, and that was working
Good
aboard the
segue.
battleship.
Excellent segue.
That was working aboard the battleship. I got to keep my crow, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And the guy's hand wasn't too bad. It was badly bruised.
Well, he has another one also.
Possibly.
I assume. Yeah.
It's true.
Okay.
Another bruised hand?
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
somehow
Yeah,
else.
he's probably going to listen to this and go, "USOB, really?" But I was talking to Rebecca the other day, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, do you ever cross the street in this crosswalk?" She goes, "Yeah, every day." And I'm like, "Yeah, be careful.
Look both ways.
People drive like jerks down there."
so working on a battleship has been really interesting in the last couple of weeks. I mean, how many times does your office go for a ride?
Yeah. And my chair started to move, and I thought it was me. And so I put my feet up onto the wheels of the chair, and I continued to move. And it was a little bit concerning.
I can't. The comments right there, but I just can't. I can't.
I don't even know where to start. Where's a good place to start?
I guess I'll start.
Okay, yeah, you start.
You nailed that first one. There's a couple that come to mind right away. One is the temperature here. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
the fact is that we're, as I call it, sophomored up to the dock, meaning we have big, for those who are uninitiated, really big ropes, we call them lines. Each one of them costs us $8,000, and they're about 250 feet long, and they're 3 5/8 of an inch diameter. Or in the circumference, it's like 11 and 5/8 or something circumference. It's a big hawser, yeah. And basically, there's 13 or 14 lines, and so she moves, and it's always kind of an astonishing thing, I think, for some people. Oh my God, is she floating? And, to us, it's comical because we're sailors, and we yeah. I mean,
She was when she got here anyway.
still is, and so. During specific weather conditions, we have a little bit more, we'll call it activity than not. During the normal course of the year, you just have big ships. I mean, I'm talking huge ships, 140,000 ton cruise ships or huge container ships,
Yeah.
the 18 to 20,000 TEU container ships now. They're massive. And they go up this channel, it's 1,000 foot wide, and they move things around because that's a lot of mass movement of water. So we kind of get jerked around a little bit. We have to, do maintenance on our lines. But under certain surge conditions, we've had a much more dramatic, incident. Back, I think, keep forgetting if it's 2013 or 14. In August, we had this phenomenal surge condition. It came out of the south. There was some kind of hurricane or whatever they call it here on this side of the world, cyclone, down off of Mexico, and the surge came flying up the
Like
the
right
gate.
into the LA
Right.
gate.
Yeah, like straight in.
And so she's moving so badly that she broke, I don't remember for sure, 10 or 12 or more wooden pilings on the dock and literally just smashed them.
Oh, geez.
And then so we chased ourselves, our tail all day long. We had a tugboat on her for 7 hours just
Oh,
to
wow.
stabilize her. Actually, 2 different tugboats, they swapped a little bit. And, it was a horrendous day for us. And at the end of the day, it was $50,000 in damage.
Yep.
So this last, 2 weeks, actually 2.5, almost the first of the year, we've had 9 storms come through Los Angeles. And one of the things that I shared with the board executive committee yesterday was just a funny little tidbit. LA recovered 33 billion gallons of water in reservoirs over the course of 9 storms.
Wow.
30. They literally filled up many reservoirs here locally. It doesn't mean our drought's over, but still, that's a lot of water. And they set records, wave records up and down the coast. There was a Category 1 hurricane winds mid-state. There's at least 4 different records that I think we saw from Joe's email, 3 or 4 record heights. One of the San Pedro buoy, which is out in the San Pedro Channel, it's a little bit further out. recorded just under a 35-foot wave. So, the surge conditions here have been extraordinary.
And can we just give a quick shout out to Joe Sankowitz, who's been on this podcast before?
Amazing.
He kept us so in the loop. He was feeding us information the whole time.
From the East Coast, as I'm watching the ship translate back and forth 15 feet and roll a degree, and we just busted up the gangways. He actually called me from Maine. Maine, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and it's wonderful to have friends like that. So the ship tries to get, as we call it, underway.
It really felt like it.
This last 2 weeks, we've probably only incurred $35,000 in damage or thereabouts. The gangways busted up.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily budgeted for, is it?
No.
I think
No. That's
Plus
something
the tugboat time.
Yeah, well, the tugboat time alone on Saturday, because we were moving so badly that we couldn't even touch the mooring line safely, and to keep her tied up. And so I called up our friends at Crowley Maritime, and they came down, and for 3 hours, each hour is a $3,500 charge. Yep. And plus there's transit time, so it's not just the time they're hooked up to your ship. So there may be 3.5 hours. It's something on the order of $12,000 just for the tugboat. So
good thing they live right next door.
Yeah, well, this one came from Long Beach, but then it went next door when it went home. But still, the ship really does move a lot, and under certain conditions, that surge, even though it's really deceptive. You can be standing on the ship, and sure, you kind of notice it moving, but you're looking out over the water and it doesn't look like it's any big deal. And then you go on the other side of the ship and you go, holy crap. I mean, this thing just took out the whole fence and ripped, the gangway practically off the ship. And once you get 45,000 tons moving, it for those who are not ignorant, and I'm not.
It's scary.
It's scary.
As I like to say, 45,000 plus tons does not stop on a suggestion.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And you can do damage to lines. You can lose lines. I mean, there's a ton of things. This last week, actually, it was a little over a week ago, I stood up an all-night watch to watch the ship. We have to do that. This is a maritime world that we're in. We are, I'm going to say, parked in the middle of the main channel of the largest or busiest, harbor here in the nation. One of the top 3 or 4 in the world, if not the top. I'm probably going to get in trouble by the port guys, but still, I mean, it's a busy place. And when you have weather, you have real weather, and this is a big deal for us. It doesn't happen often enough to really cause a big problem, but it's a big deal right now.
We had some beautiful fencing, looked very, very stout, very nice fencing. Yeah, it didn't slow the ship down, not a bit when the bow hit it.
It ripped the lower ramp off gangway 1. We had to pull the gangway off the next day, and it's on a dock now for repair, and it got worse the following week. So it's something we can deal with, and frankly, I think we did pretty well. But and I got to shout out to the crew.
Yes,
this was amazing. So two different weeks on 2 different days. We reached out to the entire crew. Understand that our emails on weekends go out to 550 or so people, at least the ones I send out, and 500 of those are volunteers. And we had people from 5 different departments show up just this last Saturday alone. We had somebody from your department, Kyle, who showed up. It was wonderful. I've forgotten his name. Let's say Steve or Paul or
Bill.
something. Bill. Oh, okay, I was wrong. But still, I mean, it was wonderful to have people just show up because they wanted to help, because moving these lines around
takes a lot of bodies.
It's really tough. It's not an easy job. You actually have to use a chain fall just to get enough tension on it and to lift the weight of the line to get what you need.
Especially when it's wet.
Yeah, and it was pouring rain after about 10 o'clock. So, just an amazing effort. Sue dropped a note this last Saturday, and I dropped a note the week before. And people really come out to support, and that's a huge thing. That's actually what's most heartwarming here, because everybody came out. Everybody understood the challenge, and we had to get her tied up.
And that's part of the magic of working here. There are some interesting challenges working here, but there is a lot of magic working here too.
Yep,
absolutely. And speaking of support, I think Jonathan had sent a note out during his weekly missive. Jonathan's off polishing his award right now, I think, but I will cover what he basically said. He said that a lot of those costs that we did incur, we've had a lot of people step up to support those, but obviously they're tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage that were not expected, not budgeted for. And so we have to recoup those costs, which are some of those just daily maintenance kinds of things that you don't have to experience when you're in a building. So you'd like to donate, pacificbattleship.com/donate or surfacenavymuseum.org/donate. Anything helps to help build that pier back up and replace those mooring lines.
And the gangways alone are going to cost us, $6,000 to $8,000. The crane service just to get the gangway off and back on is going to be just under $6,000. To do that, and it just to us it's kind of normal, but it's certainly not budgeted. And you really need the help. So
people that work in a normal office environment don't I can't think of any time that I worked in Silicon Valley that I had a tugboat alongside the building.
Or the building tried to move out from underneath you, which could be an earthquake. I've had that before.
It was interesting because you talk about it moving. One of the most magical moments for me as a sailor is when you cast off and you get underway. And one of my favorite places to be is not working and being able to watch the pier kind of slip away.
Yeah.
And I was standing next to the aft bow, and I was watching us, get underway. The pier was moving away from me and sliding aft, and I thought, it's just like. And then I was like, hey, we are actually still tied to the pier, and we are not getting underway. It was just a sort of reminiscent flashback moment, and then it was like, this is very bad.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like you could have walked at a brisk pace alongside the ship. She was moving that fast.
Yeah, and I get it's a stressful time for everybody, and certainly for me because I'm making the calls on money and tugboats and stuff like that, and plus you're concerned about the safety of people.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Literally, we were moving things down around the dock in the security shack, and George lifted the ramp one day before it took out the corner of the fence, and we had people trying to get on and off, and we're going, wait a minute, it was pretty exciting for.
No, the superstructure was just the way it was moving back and forth. We couldn't get it on video because it was night and it just wouldn't have shown up, but it was moving back and forth significantly. It looked like she was bobbing out there on the waves.
Yeah.
And I've been saying since I got here, I'd love to see what she felt like underway. And I'm like, might have a little bit better idea now.
Yeah.
Well, she's got a wonderful role. Right now, she's about 12,000 tons light. So we've anchored her offshore. David, did you come out for that?
Yeah.
And so we were on it, and I'll never forget this. We towed down from San Francisco, and somebody had left a bottle on one of the tables in the wardroom, and it was just sitting there when we got down here.
That's amazing.
And so she's got this wonderful little gentle roll, and it feels really comfortable.
It's not. She felt really heavy, a long, heavy roll the other day.
Her riding arm is not too strong, so it's just a comfortable roll.
Again, I remember standing on the fantail with a cup of coffee in my hand, watching the Tycho under 1 over 3. And or over 1 under 3, depending on it. I thought they needed a periscope. USS Ticonderoga for everybody else, CG-47. And I was just sitting there sipping my coffee, and it felt pretty gentle.
Yeah.
But she's a little top heavy. And so, she does have a pretty gentle roll, but it was roll, hang, shutter, 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 shutter. Oh my God, is it coming back? Roll.
Yeah, we haven't really I've been on weather in this thing. But it was nice offshore. It was good.
Yeah.
It was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah, we stood anchor watch and everything. Yeah. So moving on to other challenges.
Yeah.
I mentioned temperature, and with the risk of getting crap from our friends back east and in some colder climate, this thing, we don't keep heat on this thing because this is California. But you give a couple months out of the year, and this thing gets really cold. Really cold. And that first winter in Richmond, California, up north, I measured 36 degrees inside my stateroom. I'm not joking.
Yeah,
and it just sucks the life out of you. And I remember we used to take showers once every 3 days just to get warm, whether we needed it or not. But
it was pretty interesting. We had the shower card for the marina, and you'd go.
That's such a boat thing.
You would go over there and turn the heater on. Only one of the heaters worked, so you had to get the shower that had and so you crank the heater on, and you're like, please, please, please turn the thing on, and it would steam, and you're like, oh God, it's warm. And then you get in and just stay there, and you're like, I don't want to get out. I don't want to get out. I don't want to get out. Yeah. We have jackets that say the armored ice box because that's absolutely what it is.
I'll never forget it. There was this great image, and Kyle, this may be the first time you hear this. So Jonathan and Sue were at the ship, and I went home, and I came back on, I want to say Sunday night, and I came into the dark, and would have been January of that year in 2012. And I pull in this silly gate and everything, and I come bounding up not really bounding, but
I was say, how do you bound?
Marty bounded up the gangway. I was there for that one. But I hopped up there and came into the door, and I'm not joking, there was one single light bulb over that first starboard table in the wardroom. And Jonathan's on one side and Sue is on the other, and they're bundled up completely, and their feet are up off the deck, and they've got a little electric heater between them. And every few minutes they would spin it the other way so the other person could have a little bit of the heat. There just wasn't enough power on the ship. We had no shore power to speak of.
It was
it was miserably
cold. It was so cold. And the thing is, it wasn't just the ambient cold. Your feet were on the deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it would just suck the heat out of your body. So you'd sit down, you'd like lift one foot up. It's like you'd try to get as little contact with the deck as you could.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. And so in the summertime, it's the opposite. It takes weeks for it to heat up. And if you don't have air conditioning, and we don't have air conditioning in tons of places, and
we have fun in here in the summer.
Yeah, it just kind of heats up and stays with you. And the reverse is true in the wintertime. So you have these kind of wing months that suck, frankly,
They really do. Yeah. It's funny. Marianne was in my office earlier for a meeting, and she walks in and she goes, "Oh my gosh, it's so warm in here."
My hands thawed out.
Well, I have an original Microsoft Surface, which is not a tablet. It's a coffee table sized computer that has this rear projection screen on it. And
cool.
It's I collect old electronics and stuff just because I'm weird. But it makes a nice conversations piece for the CIO or CTO office, and it's in running condition. And the only time I run it is when it's cold because it sheds so much heat in there.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have a heater, but I do have a big coffee table computer that it seems to get the job done.
Yeah, literally the moment I walked in your office, I was like, oh, it's warm.
I have my son down working with me this week, and he keeps leaving the door open when he leaves, and I'm like,
what are you doing?
Born in a barn? Come on.
It's a generational thing. There's no barns anywhere near me, but I got the same thing.
Okay, so we're going to break right there. We talked quite a bit more about the unusual aspects of working on board this ship, enough so that we can make a whole second episode out of it. So thanks for watching this one. Tune in for the next one. And in the meantime, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions for topics, or any other communications you'd like to give us, podcast at labattleship.com, podcast at labattleship.com. Thanks for watching.